We all want to be remembered, right? We all want to have a positive impact during our lifetime. We all want to leave a legacy. But without wanting to depress you today, the reality is, right, that 99.9% of all humans that have ever lived were forgotten within a couple of generations of their death. I mean, that's just the reality. Most of us are not remembered for very long. Our lives are here one minute and gone the next. That is the sad and tragic reality of human earthly life. And that's kind of what Peter hints at in the passage we're reading together today. He quotes from Isaiah and he says this: "All flesh is like grass, and all its glory like the flower of grass. The grass withers and the flower falls." It's a sobering declaration from Peter there. You know, earlier in the year I planted some flowers in my garden, and for a few weeks they looked stunning, full of colour, full of beauty. But right now, if you were to come and have a look at those same flowers, they would look very different. They're rotten, they're brown, they're ugly, they're dead. And essentially that's what Peter compares human life to. He says, we're here for a moment. All flesh is like grass, and all its glory like the flower of grass. The grass withers and the flower fades. We're not here for very long, and we're not remembered for very long after we go. I don't want to depress you this morning. I want to give you hope, because Peter goes on to say, even though all flesh is like grass, the word of the Lord endures forever. In other words, Peter contrasts earthly flesh with the eternal word of God. And just a few verses prior to that quote from Isaiah, Peter says to us today that you have been born again, he says. You have been born again, not of perishable seed, but of imperishable seed, through the living and abiding word of God. In other words, Peter is saying to us, yes, in your flesh, you're here one minute and gone the next. In your flesh, you're no more spectacular than flowers that grow up for a few weeks and then die away. In your flesh, that is the sum total of what you get and who you are. But that's not who you are, Peter says, because you've been born again. You've been born again through the eternal word of God. So even though your earthly life, your fleshly self, is fading like the flowers of the field, Peter says, your true self, your born again self, will endure forever. Why? Because it's been born through the power of the word of God. And the word of God never dies, it never fails, it never fades. And so yes, in 100 years' time, there may not be many people on earth who remember you. But don't be too discouraged, because your true self will continue forever and ever and ever, because it's been born again through the living and abiding and eternal word of God.